The Texas real estate market is standing at a crossroads, where optimism meets uncertainty, and where opportunity collides with hesitation. Across the Lone Star State, for sale signs are lingering longer than usual, signaling a quiet but undeniable shift. The days of lightning-fast sales and sky-high bidding wars have slowed to a crawl. It's not a collapse, it's a correction, a moment of reckoning in one of the country's most dynamic housing landscapes. Imagine a wide suburban street in Houston or Dallas, a line of well-kept homes, each one marked by a small red sign that once meant instant offers. Today, those signs stand for weeks. The lawns are still trimmed, the porches swept, but the calls from eager buyers aren't coming like they used to. Sellers are beginning to feel the chill. Inventory is rising, listings are stacking up, and prices are beginning to soften. At first glance, that might sound like bad news, but it's not the full story. Because while sellers face tougher competition, homebuyers finally have something they haven't seen in years: leverage. The Texas housing market is entering a rare phase of balance, a transition from frenzy to reflection. The numbers tell part of the story. More than 137,000 single-family homes are now active across the state, giving buyers around 3.7 months of supply to choose from. Homes that once sold in a weekend now take an average of 84 days to move. And yet, even as timelines lengthen, prices remain firm, with the median listing hovering around $377,000, still above pre-pandemic norms. This dual reality, slower movement but sustained prices, captures the complexity of the Texas market in 2025. Buyers are cautious but hopeful, sellers are patient but anxious, and realtors, standing between them, are adapting to a world where every decision feels like a gamble. A recent Texas Realtors poll reveals the human side of the story. 2/3 of buyers feel they have enough homes to choose from, while 20% still feel the options are too limited. Nearly 4 in 10 buyers say they've faced competing offers, proof that competition hasn't vanished, only mellowed. And for many, timing has become the key. As one industry expert put it, the right time to buy isn't about the market, it's about your moment. Meanwhile, broader economic forces are quietly shaping every decision. The Federal Reserve's rate cuts have pulled mortgage rates near 11-month lows, giving buyers a rare window of affordability. But high prices and an unstable job market are holding many back. For every buyer ready to move, another waits on the sidelines, unsure of what comes next. So as Texas heads deeper into fall 2025, the stage is set for one of the most revealing housing seasons in years. This isn't the end of the boom. It's the start of a reset, a test of patience, strategy, and timing in a market once defined by speed. The story of Texas real estate isn't just about numbers. It's about people navigating a changing landscape, searching for the right home, the right deal, and maybe the right moment to make their move. After years of relentless price surges, bidding wars, and record-breaking demand, the Texas real estate market in late 2025 is finally catching its breath. The storm of the pandemic-era housing frenzy has passed, leaving behind a calmer, yet more complex landscape. Homes are no longer selling overnight, buyers are no longer lining up with offers tens of thousands over asking, and realtors are finding that patience, once a forgotten virtue, has become essential again. The numbers across the state paint a picture of moderation. There are now over 137,000 single-family homes actively listed in Texas, roughly 3.7 months of supply, a significant increase from the tight inventory of recent years. In housing terms, that number reflects a market approaching equilibrium, not quite favoring buyers, but no longer tilted towards sellers either. This balancing act is visible from the bustling suburbs of Dallas to the quieter neighborhoods of San Antonio, where listings sit a little longer and sellers are adjusting expectations. The median list price now sits around $377,558, a slight drop from summer highs but still comfortably above pre-pandemic averages. In fact, while prices have softened, they remain elevated enough to challenge affordability. Buyers have more choices but not necessarily more comfort, especially as the cost of living and inflation weigh on household budgets. New listings are entering the market slightly lower, averaging around $358,450, showing that sellers are becoming more realistic. Yet despite this cooling, Texas remains one of the most affordable large markets in the U.S. compared to coastal states like California or New York, where median prices exceed $700,000. For many, that makes Texas a land of opportunity, a place where the dream of homeownership, though delayed, is still within reach. But the calm is not without its undercurrents. Homes are taking longer to sell, with the median days on market reaching 84, compared to the national average of 70. In some rural and suburban regions, listings linger for over 120 days, forcing sellers to rethink pricing strategies. Nearly 44% of all active listings have undergone at least one price reduction, while 13% have been relisted after failing to sell at the first attempt. This slower rhythm has led realtors and investors alike to shift focus from speed to strategy. As one housing analyst put it, "The frenzy is gone. Now it's all about precision." Sellers are learning to price competitively from the start, while buyers are using their newfound leverage to negotiate repairs, closing costs, and even furniture. Still, demand isn't dead. It's just more selective. Over 35,000 homes are under contract, showing that motivated buyers are still in the game, though more cautious and calculated than before. The alignment between pending sales and new listing prices, both hovering around $359,000, reveals a market that's adjusting to its new rhythm. Texas, in essence, has entered its post-boom era, a period of recalibration rather than retreat. The chaos has quieted, but the market remains alive, moving steadily forward. For buyers, this calm represents an opportunity to act wisely. For sellers, it's a reminder that the easy days are over, but smart strategies can still lead to success. The storm has passed, but what follows now is just as defining. A test of endurance, adaptability, and confidence in the Texas dream. If there's one phrase that captures the mood of Texas homebuyers in 2025, it's cautiously optimistic. Beneath the surface of the state's sprawling neighborhoods and growing inventory lies a conflicted sense of opportunity and hesitation. For every buyer ready to take advantage of lower mortgage rates and expanded listings, another remains wary, haunted by memories of skyrocketing prices, job uncertainty, and an economy that still feels fragile. According to the first-ever statewide poll by Texas Realtors, homebuyers' attitudes toward the market are anything but uniform. Two-thirds of buyers reported feeling that there were enough homes to choose from, a dramatic improvement from the scarcity of just 2 years ago. But for roughly 20% of those surveyed, the sense of scarcity remains real, especially in sought-after urban cores like Austin and Dallas, where specific home styles or neighborhoods remain competitive. This divide between optimism and frustration reveals the deeper reality. The Texas housing market isn't one single market. It's a network of micro-markets, each with its own rhythm and rules. What feels like a buyer's market in suburban Houston might still feel like a bidding war in parts of Austin. As Christy Jessler, chairman of Texas Realtors, noted, "We talk about the market, but there are so many micro-markets. The key isn't to predict prices. It's to understand what clients need in the present." Even with more listings on the market, competition hasn't disappeared. The poll found that 39% of buyers still face competing offers when trying to purchase a home, and 63% had made offers on other houses before closing on their final choice. It's a sign that while inventory has grown, the best properties still attract attention, and fast. Buyers are learning that slower market doesn't necessarily mean easy market. For many, time has become both a luxury and a pressure point. Nearly 3/4 of buyers said they felt they had enough time to make decisions, yet 18% admitted feeling pressured to act quickly. This reflects a shifting psychology. The fear of missing out has faded, but the anxiety of making the wrong move remains. Financial realities add another layer to the sentiment divide. Half of all buyers increased their price range during their search, while just 31% lowered it, showing that despite market softening, affordability is still a challenge. Many prospective homeowners stopped looking altogether, 42% citing prices too high, and another 30% saying desired features weren't available within budget. It's a market that demands strategy, not spontaneity. Buyers today are analytical, often leaning heavily on their agents for guidance through fluctuating interest rates and uneven local trends. Gone are the days of impulsive overbidding. 2025's Texas homebuyer is cautious, data-driven, and determined to find balance between ambition and prudence. In essence, Texas homebuyers are living in a paradox. They have more choices than they've had in years, yet feel less confident about making one. The market may be stabilizing, but sentiment remains divided, a reflection not only of economics but of emotion. It's a reminder that real estate isn't just about property values. It's about human values, hopes, fears, and the search for the right place to call home. For years, Texas home sellers held all the cards. Listings vanished within days, often above asking price, and bidding wars broke out over even modest properties. But in 2025, that dominance has eroded. The seller's market that once defined Texas real estate has cooled into something far more balanced and far more challenging. The list it and leave it mentality no longer works. Today's sellers are learning to adapt, negotiate, and, in many cases, compromise. Across the state, the numbers tell a sobering truth. With over 137,000 active listings and supply rising to 3.7 months statewide, homes are taking longer to sell, and competition among sellers is fierce. The median days on market now sits at 84, a full 2 weeks longer than the national average. Many listings linger for well over 100 days before receiving a serious offer. The frenzy is gone, and patience has become the new currency of success. This slowdown is forcing sellers to face the uncomfortable reality of price corrections. Nearly 44% of all Texas listings have recorded a price reduction, while 13% have been relisted after failing to sell on the first attempt. This trend reflects a fundamental shift in strategy. Sellers are no longer able to test the market with inflated prices. Buyers are smarter, data-driven, and far less impulsive than before. Experts say the new normal is all about pricing precision. The days of speculative listing prices are over. Homes introduced at realistic values, especially those near the mid-market range of $350,000 to $400,000, are drawing the most interest. As HousingWire's October 2025 report noted, competitive initial pricing and timely adjustments are critical in maintaining buyer attention. Sellers who refuse to adjust quickly risk being left behind. Still, it's not all doom and gloom. Despite the slowdown, more than 35,000 homes are currently under contract, signaling that buyers are active, just more selective. Well-priced homes in desirable neighborhoods continue to move, though not with the lightning pace of previous years. Sellers who invest in presentation, professional staging, updated listings, and transparent pricing are finding success, even in a cooling market. The emotional side of this shift can't be ignored. For many homeowners, especially those who purchased during the pandemic boom, accepting a lower price feels like defeat. But realtors are reframing the narrative. This isn't a crash, it's a return to normalcy. The Texas market isn't collapsing. It's correcting after years of unsustainable growth. In this new environment, successful sellers are the ones who adapt quickly. They listen to feedback, respond to market data, and understand that flexibility is their greatest asset. Some are even offering buyer incentives, covering closing costs, lowering listing prices, or offering rate buydowns to stand out in an increasingly crowded marketplace. The lesson of 2025 for Texas sellers is clear. The market has changed, and so must they. Gone are the days when every home sparked a bidding war. Today, the winners are those who price smart, stay patient, and embrace the evolving rhythm of a market that's finding its balance once again. In a housing market defined by uncertainty, one decision by the Federal Reserve has reshaped the conversation. A rate cut that pushed mortgage rates to their lowest levels in nearly a year. For Texas buyers and sellers alike, this move was more than a headline. It was a signal of hope, a shift that reopened the door to affordability in a market that had grown painfully out of reach. But as with all things in real estate, the story isn't that simple. After hovering stubbornly high for much of 2024, 30-year fixed mortgage rates now sit around 6.38%, the lowest point in 11 months. On paper, that's a relief. For a median-priced Texas home of roughly $377,000, that drop can save homeowners hundreds of dollars a month and tens of thousands over the lifetime of a loan. Compared to the peak rate of 7.16% earlier in the year, the difference in lifetime mortgage costs is staggering, over $65,000 in savings. Yet despite the improved conditions, affordability remains a paradox. While the Fed's decision has given buyers more purchasing power, the overall cost of homeownership is still high due to elevated prices and stagnant wages. Redfin's economists point out that even though borrowing costs have fallen, affordability is still a mirage for many, hidden behind inflated prices and economic uncertainty. For buyers with stable income and savings, however, the timing is ideal. Texas continues to be one of the most accessible major markets in the nation, offering more value per square foot than coastal states. The combination of lower mortgage rates and rising inventory has created a sweet spot for qualified buyers. Those who can act quickly and confidently are in a position to negotiate favorable deals that were unthinkable just 2 years ago. The Fed's rate cut has also revitalized refinancing applications, especially among homeowners who purchased during the pandemic at higher rates. This has created a ripple effect. Lower monthly payments free up disposable income, stabilizing local economies and fueling cautious optimism. Still, experts warn that mortgage rates could remain volatile. Factors like tariffs, inflation risk, and delayed government data could cause sudden swings, testing buyer confidence again before year's end. For sellers, the lower rates are both a blessing and a burden. On one hand, they expand the pool of eligible buyers. On the other, they force sellers to compete in a market where affordability expectations are rising. A buyer today knows they have leverage. They can walk away, wait for another property, or push for concessions. Ultimately, the Fed's decision marks a turning point. Not a full recovery, but a recalibration. Mortgage rates hovering between 6% and 7% suggest a delicate balance between opportunity and restraint. Texas buyers are no longer racing against time. They're analyzing, calculating, and choosing wisely. In the grand scheme, the rate cut represents more than just numbers. It symbolizes a psychological shift. It tells buyers that the market may finally be working in their favor, if only for a moment. The challenge now is to seize that moment before rising inflation or renewed competition pushes affordability out of reach once again. For the first time in years, the Texas real estate landscape has flipped. The balance of power that once favored sellers, when homes sold within days and over asking, has now swung decisively toward the buyer. It's official. Texas is in a buyer's market. And for those who have been waiting patiently on the sidelines, the tide has finally turned in their favor. Across the state, buyers are gaining leverage not because of a collapse but because of saturation. There are simply more homes on the market than there are qualified, ready buyers to purchase them. Nationwide, there are roughly 500,000 more sellers than buyers, and Texas ranks near the top in active inventory, alongside Florida. The result? A marketplace where buyers have the upper hand, where negotiation, not desperation, defines the transaction. In the past, buyers were forced to act fast, often waiving inspections or appraisal contingencies just to compete. Now that dynamic has changed dramatically. Buyers can take their time, explore more options, and most importantly, negotiate with confidence. Real estate agents across the state report that buyers are successfully requesting repairs, price reductions, and even seller credits toward closing costs. The days of frantic overbidding are gone. In their place is a quieter, more deliberate dance between buyer and seller. The average home in Texas now takes 84 days to sell, compared to the 30-day turnover common during the pandemic boom. With listings spending longer on the market, sellers are motivated to make deals. About 44% of homes statewide have seen at least one price cut, and 13% have been relisted after failing to sell initially. This means that for buyers, patience is more than a virtue. It's a strategy. Waiting just a few weeks can often lead to a better deal, or an added incentive from anxious sellers. Median listing prices, sitting at around $377,000, may still appear high, but the difference today is flexibility. Sellers are realizing that buyers have choices again, and competition among listings is fierce. Homes introduced at the right price are still selling, but inflated ones are quickly ignored. The mid-market range between $350,000 and $400,000 has become the sweet spot where most transactions occur, showing that realistic pricing is the new key to movement. This shift also extends beyond pricing. It's psychological. Buyers who once felt powerless now feel emboldened. Realtors describe clients walking into showings with spreadsheets, data comparisons, and clear negotiating terms. They're not rushing, they're strategizing. And this shift in tone has redefined the energy of the Texas market entirely. Even as mortgage rates stabilize near 6.38%, affordability challenges linger, but the crucial difference is choice. Inventory levels, now around 3.7 to 5 months of supply, give buyers breathing room not seen in years. The competition has cooled, and the chaos has settled. For Texas, this isn't just a pause, it's a reset. A chance for balance to return to a market that's been overheated for too long. Buyers now hold the leverage, but how long they'll keep it depends on what happens next, with inflation, jobs, and rates all hanging in the balance. For now, though, the Lone Star State belongs to the buyer, and they're finally calling the shots. The Texas real estate market may be overflowing with listings, but demand has become its weakest link. Despite falling mortgage rates, increasing inventory, and a more balanced environment, homebuyers remain hesitant. What was once a stampede for properties has transformed into a slow shuffle, with cautious consumers carefully weighing every decision. The result is a market that feels paradoxical, full of opportunity, yet short on momentum. Across the state, homes are sitting longer than they have in years. The median days on market now stand at 84, but many properties linger past 120 days, particularly in rural and suburban counties. Realtors describe a noticeable slowdown in buyer urgency. Offers that once came in within 48 hours now take weeks to materialize. Even when buyers express interest, deals are stalling at the negotiation table. The average time to close has stretched to around 34 days for pending sales, reflecting a broader sense of hesitation rather than financial incapacity. The source of that hesitation lies in the economy itself. While the Federal Reserve's rate cuts have lowered borrowing costs, consumers remain wary of committing to large purchases amid job insecurity, inflation concerns, and political uncertainty. Redfin's economists call it a confidence recession, a period where people can technically afford homes but emotionally can't commit to buying one. Texans, like many Americans, are asking themselves the same question: is now really the right time? The data supports this sentiment. Despite the state's strong housing supply, buyer demand is near an all-time low, echoing national trends. Even with over 35,000 pending sales, it's clear that activity has slowed compared to previous years. In major metros like Austin, the slowdown is especially visible, where homes that once sparked bidding wars now wait quietly for serious offers. This cooling effect isn't driven by a lack of interest. It's driven by fear of timing the market wrong. High prices are another part of the dilemma. Even with inventory rising, the median listing price of $377,000 remains daunting for many first-time buyers. The cost of insurance, property taxes, and maintenance continues to rise, offsetting much of the relief brought by lower mortgage rates. Add to that a sluggish job market and the ongoing government shutdown's economic ripple effects, and it's clear why buyers are adopting a wait-and-see approach. For sellers, this new dynamic means patience and adaptability are essential. Price cuts have become a common tool to reignite interest, but even those aren't always enough to close deals quickly. Many sellers are offering concessions, from covering repair costs to buying down mortgage rates, to coax uncertain buyers into signing. In many ways, the Texas housing market has entered a new psychological phase, one defined less by supply and demand and more by trust and hesitation. Buyers have the advantage but not the confidence. Sellers have the inventory but not the leverage. Until that balance shifts, until confidence returns, the Texas market will continue to move, but at a cautious, measured pace. It's not a crash. It's a pause, a collective deep breath before the next major movement in the Lone Star State's housing story. Behind every home sold, every mortgage approved, and every price reduction in Texas's housing market, there's a silent force shaping it all: inflation. It doesn't grab headlines like mortgage rates or home prices, but it quietly influences every decision from buyers and sellers alike. In 2025, inflation is the hidden variable that's keeping the Texas real estate market on edge, unpredictable, uneasy, and watching closely for the next economic shift. After 2 years of volatile economic swings, inflation in the U.S. has stabilized but not disappeared. Prices remain elevated, and essential goods, from construction materials to groceries, continue to cost more than they did pre-pandemic. For Texas homeowners, That means the cost of maintaining a property, paying for insurance, and even renovating has risen dramatically. For buyers, it means every dollar buys a little less house. Economists warn that while inflation hasn't surged back to crisis levels, it's creeping upward again. And the reasons are complex. Tariffs, immigration policies, and lingering supply chain disruptions are pushing costs higher, while a weak job market and uneven wage growth leave consumers with limited flexibility. A recent Redfin analysis even noted that inflation should have dropped by 1/3 if it weren't for tariffs, revealing how much policy can distort the financial landscape for everyday Americans. In Texas, these pressures are magnified. The state's growing population and ongoing construction boom have made it especially vulnerable to price fluctuations in materials, energy, and labor. Builders are paying more for supplies, forcing them to raise listing prices or delay projects altogether. Meanwhile, homeowners face rising insurance premiums, particularly in flood-prone and storm-affected regions, where insurers are dropping coverage or exiting the market entirely. What used to be a simple home purchase is now a careful calculation of long-term risk and cost stability. The Federal Reserve's recent rate cuts were meant to ease some of that pressure by reducing borrowing costs. And, to an extent, they have. Lowering mortgage rates to around 6.38% has made homes more accessible on paper. But inflation's persistence means the relief is partial and temporary. If prices continue to rise, the Fed could be forced to reverse course, raising rates again and tightening affordability all over. It's a delicate balancing act, and every buyer and seller in Texas is watching. For buyers, inflation means uncertainty about the future value of their investment. For sellers, it means guessing where the next wave of economic pressure will land. Will mortgage rates stay low enough to attract more buyers? Will home values keep pace with inflation? Or will real purchasing power decline? These questions hang heavy over every transaction. Ultimately, inflation is the invisible thread connecting all other forces in Texas real estate. It shapes affordability, influences confidence, and determines whether the market will stabilize or slip back into turbulence. In 2025, Texans aren't just navigating a housing market, they're navigating an economy in flux, where every decision is tied to forces far beyond their front door. For many Texans, the decision to buy a home in 2025 isn't just about market conditions. It's about personal readiness in an era of economic uncertainty. The numbers may hint at opportunity, but behind every potential purchase lies a deeper, more emotional question. Am I truly ready for this? After years of turbulence, people are realizing that buying a home today is as much about individual stability as it is about financial strategy. The data shows that buyers have more leverage than they've had in years. Mortgage rates have eased to near 11-month lows. Inventory has climbed to 3.7 months of supply, and sellers are becoming increasingly flexible with pricing. Yet many potential buyers are holding back, not because they can't afford a home, but because they're uncertain about what the future holds. Job stability, inflation, insurance costs, and climate risks are shaping buying decisions more than ever before. Financial readiness has become the foundation of the modern home search. Buyers are taking a hard look at their savings, credit scores, and debt levels before even considering a down payment. Economists recommend maintaining an emergency fund that covers 3 to 6 months of expenses, especially in case of layoffs or market downturns. For younger buyers, particularly millennials and Gen Z, this step often requires patience and, sometimes, family support. In fact, nearly a quarter of these buyers are now using family contributions to help with down payments, showing how affordability remains a hurdle even with lower mortgage rates. Then comes the monthly budget reality. Owning a home isn't just about mortgage payments, it's about property taxes, insurance, and upkeep, all of which have risen across Texas. As insurers continue to pull back from high-risk areas, many homeowners are discovering that annual premiums can surge overnight. This has made location selection more than a matter of preference. It's a matter of survival. Climate and location stability are now central to home buying decisions. From flooding near Houston to wildfire risk in parts of Central Texas, environmental factors weigh heavily on where buyers choose to settle. What once felt like a remote risk has become an unavoidable part of the housing equation. Homeownership today means preparing for maintenance, unexpected repairs, and natural events that could reshape entire neighborhoods. Even personal goals like starting a family, changing jobs, or retiring influence the decision more than market trends. A stable career, strong support system, and long-term plan are now prerequisites for ownership in uncertain times. For some, renting remains the safer path until life feels more predictable. The Texas real estate market, for all its fluctuations, remains full of possibility. But the buyers succeeding today aren't those chasing trends. They're the ones grounded in self-awareness. They know their numbers, trust their timing, and act when both their finances and their future feel secure. In a world where economic conditions can change overnight, buying a home isn't just a financial milestone. It's a declaration of confidence in one's stability and vision for the future. As 2025 draws to a close, the Texas real estate market stands at a turning point, a phase of quiet transition that will define its trajectory for years to come. The chaos of bidding wars and frantic listings has faded, replaced by a slower, steadier rhythm. But beneath this calm surface lies a market still searching for its footing, shaped by forces that reach far beyond the Lone Star State. The months ahead promise both opportunity and challenge. The Federal Reserve's rate cuts have brought temporary relief, pulling mortgage rates down to around 6.38%, sparking cautious optimism among buyers. Yet economists warn that this stability could be short-lived. Inflation remains a looming concern, and any spike in consumer prices could push borrowing costs higher once again. For Texas, a state where growth and affordability have long gone hand in hand, the coming year will test the delicate balance between confidence and caution. Inventory is expected to remain elevated. With over 137,000 single-family homes currently active, the state is inching closer to a true equilibrium between supply and demand, something the nation hasn't seen in years. But the shift from scarcity to abundance brings its own challenges. Sellers must adapt to new realities, fine-tuning their pricing strategies and offering more concessions to attract hesitant buyers. Many industry professionals predict that listings will continue to spend longer on the market, averaging 80 to 100 days, as buyers take their time to compare options and negotiate better deals. Meanwhile, the psychological shift in the market may prove to be its most defining characteristic. The frenzy of 2020 to 2022 taught buyers and sellers alike valuable lessons about patience, timing, and financial preparedness. Today's buyers are cautious but well-informed, empowered by data and no longer willing to overextend. Sellers, on the other hand, are learning to price realistically and embrace flexibility in a way that was unthinkable just a few years ago. Economically, Texas still enjoys a strong foundation. Its diverse industries, from energy and technology to healthcare and manufacturing, continue to attract new residents, keeping long-term housing demand alive. Migration trends remain positive, especially from higher-cost states like California and New York, ensuring that population growth continues to support the market's resilience. However, affordability will remain the defining battle. Without meaningful wage growth or policy intervention, the gap between home values and household income could widen further. Looking ahead, experts believe the Texas real estate market is poised not for a collapse, but for a recalibration, a gradual adjustment toward sustainability after years of overheated expansion. The boom has evolved into balance, and while the pace has slowed, opportunity hasn't vanished. The road ahead will demand adaptability, realism, and foresight. For buyers, this is a moment to act strategically. For sellers, it's a call to evolve. And for Texas as a whole, it's a reminder that even in times of uncertainty, the foundation of growth, resilience, and ambition remains as strong as ever.